Hello, and it's good to have you back on Off the Pulpit here on Catholic SG Radio. My name's Andrea Chung, and with me, my co-host, Keith Nebrana. Now, this is how Off the Pulpit works, okay? We get members of the clergy to come in and discuss matters of faith with us. And then in our discussions, of course, we hope to hear, maybe their personal thoughts or even maybe a personal journey about the discussion that we're having.
Now, today we welcome back Father Ignatius Yeo.
Yes.
Exhibit A. Later you'll find out why I'm using this term. Just joking. So Father Iggy, of course, is no stranger to you, our dear listeners and viewers. He's parish priest of St. Anthony of Padua Church in Woodlands, as well as professor of liturgy at the St. Francis Xavier Seminary here in Singapore. Not only that, he's also chair of the Archdiocesan Liturgy Commission and master of ceremonies for all our major liturgical celebrations in the Archdiocese. Thank you so much for joining us today, Father.
Thank you. Always nice to be here.
Okay, Father. So now for the grind. As we inch closer to the Lunar New Year, right? I read somewhere we're going to have a hoppy New Year.
What?
Year of the Rabbit. This was a headline, I read. But anyway, so we are going to somehow or other during this lovely time have an opportunity also to see how the Chinese culture with its symbols, art, and even the food, of course, that is eaten, take on a particular meaning and given a sort of a symbolism within the practice of our Catholic faith. But before we actually look at these symbols and these pieces of art and all that, can we first examine what it means for faith and culture to connect and to have a meaning or impact on the lives of the faithful who are themselves actually members of a living larger community?
So, Father, to begin, could you please explain what the word inculturation means?
Okay. Well, the word inculturation was coined in 1962 by a French theologian called J. Masson, when he called to attention the need for Catholicism that is inculturated in a plural manner or multiple ways.
Right.
In 1979, it was introduced into the official church documents by Pope John Paul II, now St. John Paul II, who admitted that the word, though a neologism, which is a new word, is used to express one of the elements of the great mystery of the Incarnation. Right? In 1993, in a speech to bishops of Asia, the then Cardinal Ratzinger, the late Pope Benedict XVI, said, we should no longer speak of inculturation, but a meeting of cultures instead, of what he would now coin interculturality. It's similar to what we call interfaith, no? All the different faiths coming together,
right,
and none subsuming each other but finding some commonality.
So why did the late Holy Father, Pope Benedict the 15th, or 16th, I beg your pardon, was he so particular about using that word, defining interculturality from the previous word inculturation?
Yeah, so for the late Pope Benedict XVI, who was a great theologian, interculturality belongs to the original form of Christianity. It implies a positive attitude towards cultures and towards religion that constitute the soul of all these cultures in which people live in. And the work of purification and the courageous stance that are indispensable for every culture that wants to remain open and alive. And Catholicism itself, he says, is a culture. And so he adds, interculturation is important because evangelization is not simply the adaptation of a culture, nor just dressing up the gospels, superficial elements of the culture along the lines of superficial notion of inculturation supposes. That modifies figures of speech and a few new elements in the liturgy, and then therefore the job is done. That is not what interculturation means, but that was the stance of inculturation. They just dress up the gospel. So looks like the culture, so okay, fine.
Right.
So rather, interculturation is a process of purification that leads to healing and that transforms the culture from within.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So it's not one culture trying to replace another one.
Or dominate, for that matter.
Precisely.
But it's somehow a coming together that organically happens.
Yeah, because we do know actually in the history of the church that did happen in certain parts of the world, right? And to actually quite drastic ends, really. But then the church has moved beyond that.
Yes, and also because then that actually made people feel antagonistic towards the Christian religion. And Pope Benedict XVI was saying that Christianity itself is a culture, and it's a culture meeting another culture.
Wow.
Okay. Now, as we speak about interculturality as having a positive attitude towards other cultures and religions that make up the soul of cultures, we know of an exhibition at the Asian Civilisations Museum here in Singapore. This exhibition has been brought here in close collaboration with the Vatican Museum.
Right, and so we actually went down and we had a look at this great exhibit, and it was actually the Asian civilization together with a close collaboration with the Vatican. In fact, it was called the Anima Mundi Museum. And this is a museum, I found out, Anima Mundi. It was an ethnological tribal artifact museum. But then, you see, me being the capo, now I need to ask Father, what is this concept of Anima Mundi itself?
So the word Anima Mundi means soul of the world. The concept of Anima Mundi originated in classical antiquity as a principle regarded by some as the spirit that animates the entire universe, much as the human soul is emanated by the soul of the human body is animated by the soul. It is a notion of an organic living world that is ruled by spiritual forces rather than just mechanical laws. And so the expression soul of the world, or the world soul, or Anima Mundi in Greek psyche cosmou, was apparently used first in Greek philosophy. And similar ideas can be found in the thoughts later of European philosophers. Hence, this exhibition, we are presented with a collection of spiritualities coming together to give life to our world.
Right. So, dear friends, what you will see actually at the Asian Civilization Museum is this really excellent demonstration of interculturality, which is a meeting and the encounter of the Catholic faith and culture with Chinese culture. Now, in fact, this particular selection of Chinese Christian art from the Vatican was not very well known before this. So it's really worthwhile going to have a look at it.
Plus, you'll see firsthand how the Catholic Church was able to integrate traditional Asian elements into its art. Okay, so these intricate objects reveal the ingenuity of Asian artisans and craftsmen who were able to adapt their work to incorporate foreign aesthetics and ideas that made them more appealing to local audiences.
Right, and so this artistic and cultural exchange expresses through these works how art can foster a meaningful dialogue among religions and cultures. So, why not use something that is peaceful and beautiful to talk about, and come to a sort of a central agreement and say, oh yeah, beautiful, because why? In a sense, because you agree on the beauty of the object, and there's nothing really to, disagree about, right? And so I think actually it's quite brilliant, really. And so, we like to share with you, actually, dear sisters and brothers, some of the pieces that we saw for ourselves. And one of them actually is this image of the Blessed Mother and the child Jesus. And if you allow me, I'll just like to give you this description. This particular painting is on oil on canvas, and it depicts the Virgin Mary as Our Lady of China with the child Jesus. Yeah. And it was done in the workshop of the Tushanwan Orphanage in China, Shanghai. And the work was signed and dated the year 1924. It's on loan from Anima Mundi, this Vatican museum, and it's a gift of the Tushanwan Orphanage for the 1925 Vatican exhibition. What do you think about that?
So for this first exhibit, Father, your thoughts on this particular mother and child image?
Yes. And so in this image, we see an excellent play of intercultural expression. The features of the mother and the child retain their traditionally accepted expression, like more Western though, while they are dressed in traditional Chinese cultural regalia, particularly of the Qing dynasty.
Right.
And subtly at the background of that painting, we see repeated patterns of the swastika. We speak about the swastika later.
Yes.
But this repeated pattern is used in ancient religions, and it is called sacred geometry. And this repeated patterns actually denotes divinity.
Wow.
And so this painting, this image, communicates the Christian sentiments of revering both Mary and Jesus as divine royalty.
Wow.
In 1924, at the first gathering of the Catholic bishops of China, this image that is on display in the museum now was made known as Our Lady of China. And in doing so, the apostolic delegate in China, Archbishop Celso Constani, together with the other bishops, entrusted the Chinese people to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Our Lady of China is also known as the Virgin of Donglu in the Hebei province,
Right.
where a miracle occurred on the site. And to commemorate this miracle, the second Sunday in May every year is celebrated as the Feast of Our Lady of China.
Oh, how lovely. Yeah.
I've been to different parts of the world in this, Our Lady of Prague, Our Lady of this.
Yes.
Our Lady everywhere.
Our Lady is everywhere. Okay, talking about the next piece. Now, the next piece on display actually was, when I told Father, you are going to love this because being a liturgist, he was really going to appreciate it, and actually he did. But let's share with our listeners what it is. So, dear friends, it is a beautiful and ornate high altar. Am I correct? It was made in China in the early 20th century with wood, lacquer, gold, and color pigments. And the altar is a faithful reproduction of the original altar at the Fujian Catholic University in Beijing, dated around 1935. So, Father, please share with us your impressions of this really huge piece.
In this high altar, we see an excellent expression of interculturality. The red architectural pavilion at the top would have housed a monstrance, right? Of course, we call it pavilion because it looks like a Chinese pavilion.
That's right.
It draws from the Catholic architectural tradition of a balaquino, right? But the color red harkens to the Chinese cultural folk, the story of the victory over the evil Nian, right? Or Nianzhou, which is the evil beast. In fact, it's very closely linked to the Chinese New Year that's coming up.
Yeah.
That's why Chinese New Year is called Xing Nian. It's a victory over the evil Nian. Okay, but that's for another program.
Yeah. And Keith and I wouldn't know any better, really.
So the pavilion in Chinese culture finds its roots in a stupa. Although stupas today are very much related to Buddhism, stupas predated Buddhism. Originally, stupas were simply mounds of earth or stones and where it's placed to bury important kings away from the village.
Right.
At the time of Sakyamuni Buddha's death, a change came about in the way stupas were regarded. It was after the request of the Buddha to have his relics placed in a familiar stupa, this kind of like pavilion. And so we see a shift in emphasis. A stupa is intended then to stop you in your tracks, to contemplate and refresh your soul.
Wow.
The stupa, therefore, is a monumental architecture emphasizing our connection to the spiritual by both its mass and its symbolic shape. It became an architectural representation of the entire Buddhist path. The body, speech, and mind of an enlightened teacher is contained therein, and a reminder of the timeless quality which one senses in these old monuments. And so the stupa evolved from just a mound of dirt, a heap of pile that is raised aloft, or a king's burial tomb, to a religious monument emphasizing our soul's connection to the spiritual.
Oh.
Now, below this pavilion that we see on this altar is the tabernacle, where, of course, we know the consecrated hosts are kept. The scene on the door of the tabernacle is a pelican piercing his own breast with his beak to feed his blood to his young. This became a symbol of Christ sacrificing himself for mankind, an image often seen in Western Christian art.
Right.
Now, on the front of the base of the altar, there are 3 medallions with inscriptions in Chinese archaic script, enclosed with Buddhist, Taoist, and Christian symbols.
Oh.
Yeah. In the center panel, a swastika frame encloses the inscription Jesus in Chinese. And the 2 ends are Alpha and Omega.
Right.
So now here I would like to expound further what is the use of the swastika.
Right.
Now the swastika has a long and complex history over 10,000 years,
Ah.
much older than its association with Nazi Germany,
Right.
also dating back to prehistoric times. The swastika emblem was a sign of well-being and long life, and it's found everywhere, from the tombs of early Christians in the catacombs of Rome to the Labilia rock churches, Cathedral of Corboda. The motif appears to have been used in Eurasia as early as 7,000 years ago.
My goodness.
Now, what is also interesting is that the pavilion, at the bottom of the roof of the entrance of the pavilion, there is a kind of Jewish inscription. I would say rather corrupted because it's a reproduction.
Yeah.
But my best guess is that it looks like the Hebrew word for heaven. Now, this is significant. There's a powerful significance because the inscription in Hebrew was done in Hebrew. Usually in Chinese pavilions, they will have it in Chinese,
Right.
but they did it in Hebrew. Well, why they did it in Hebrew was probably not to offend the Chinese emperor, because having that place there is likened to the temple of heaven, which is an imperial sacrifice altar found in Beijing. And it's called Tian Tang, which also means heaven in Chinese. Now, this is a complex of religious buildings that is situated in the southeastern part of central Beijing. And this altar in the exhibition kinds of model itself after that temple in Beijing. The temple in Beijing, this complex is usually visited by the emperors of the Ming and Qing dynasty for the annual celebration of prayer to heaven for good harvest, usually done during Chinese New Year.
Ah.
So in ancient China, the emperor of China was regarded as the son of heaven,
Right.
who administered earthly matters on behalf and representing heavenly authority. And is to be seen as showing respect to the source of his authority in the form of sacrifices to heaven. And therefore, what he did on behalf of the people was extremely important.
Right.
He was the link between the people and heaven as the son of heaven.
Right.
And the temple was built specifically for these ceremonies.
He was like a mediator.
Yes. So from this explanation, we can see how this symbolism
Yeah.
parallels to Christ,
Yeah.
the Son of God, coming down from heaven and his sacrifice on the cross for us, they celebrated on their altar, and being the bread of life for all men.
Wow. Wow. That is
Wow.
that is amazing.
Yeah, also you see inscribed on the altar, right, are other symbols, and one of the symbols is actually the Buddha hand fruit. Okay? And the Buddha hand fruit in China is a symbol of happiness, longevity, good fortune, or blessings. And that is what the Eucharist gives us: happiness, eternal life, not just longevity, and also blessings from the Lord.
Wow. You see, already just that altar alone.
Just one
Just
altar.
one
Exhibit B.
simple altar. Just one exhibit.
Yes.
Wow.
And if you are watching or listening to this and you're thinking, wow, there's so much richness, and what you can do is when you go to the exhibition, when you reach this particular exhibit, put on the description and then it all makes sense.
Yeah.
As you walk through, look for these and play this.
That's right. Actually, we are going to have a visual version of this. So maybe if you listen to both, you really get the full picture of what.
It'd be like a museum guide.
That's right. And by the way, if you've just joined us and don't know what on earth we're talking about, welcome to Off the Pulpit. With us today, we have Father Ignatius. Father, of course, is no stranger to us, and he is the parish priest of St. Anthony of Padua. He's also professor of liturgy at the St. Francis Xavier Seminary. He's also chair of the Archdiocesan Liturgy Commission, and he is master of ceremonies for all our major liturgical celebrations here in the Archdiocese. Now, we have another interesting, a few more things to talk about, really.
That's right.
Okay.
So the next set of artifacts are liturgical paraphernalia used for Holy Mass. And here we see enamel work done on metal. Okay, so we understand these were made in China, in Beijing, in the early 20th century. Okay, and it was made for the Beijing Catholic Church. So these are on loan, of course, from the Anima Mundi, Vatican Museum. So, Father, for this set of artifacts, what are your thoughts on them?
So this collection of liturgical paraphernalia used for Holy Mass include the crucifix, ciborium, chalice, and a pattern. And they're all done in traditional Western form, all made in China and decorated with Catholic symbols. Now the base of the chalice is decorated with grains and grapevines. Special symbols both in Catholic and the Chinese culture. Now, during the celebration of Holy Mass, the bread with the host is made from grain, which then after forms into the body of Christ, and wine from grapes that becomes his blood.
Right.
In Chinese culture, grain is one of the 12 symbols of sovereignty, right, representing prosperity and fertility, while grapevines represents abundance and many heirs of generations. Now, the wheat in Chinese mi, and is where we get the Chinese rice, mi fan. It symbolizes, for the Chinese, a link between heaven, the gods, and earth, man. And so it is a staple food that is popular and has been a source of life for centuries for the Chinese people. Again, for the Chinese, grapes symbolize abundance of food because it comes in big bunches, right? Meaning the abundance of material wealth. Grapes represents the success and abundance that will reach each person in a near future.
No, but it's so beautiful. It so beautifully ties in with the Eucharist and everything that we celebrate.
The complementarity in the symbolism.
Yeah. And as you were sharing also, I couldn't help. This is where the Catholic culture very much infused. Yeah, I was thinking of all the references, grapevine, you know, in John 15.
Correct.
Jesus talking about, and then you have these symbols, bread, grapes.
Wheat, and then you also think St. Ignatius of Antioch say, I long to be like wheat grind under the teeth of the lions. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's just amazing. That's just amazing. Okay, wait, we haven't finished. I think we've got another one, which is a pair of candelabra or candle holders with dragon motif bases. And just to share with you, dear sisters and brothers, these are beautifully carved candle holders, and they were recorded to have been made in China around 1872. There are also examples of enamel on metal and are on loan from Anima Mundi Vatican Museum. This specific pair were, in fact, a gift of the Catholic community to the Catholic community of Beijing, by the way, to Pope Pius IX in 1872. By the way, Pope Pius IX was one of the longest reigning popes, apparently. Yeah, exactly. And in fact, he convoked the first Vatican Council in 1868. Okay, that's side fact. But anyway, dragons, Father, dragons. Isn't the use of dragons a bit of an issue in Christianity?
Yeah. So firstly, we have to make it clear, dragons aren't always evil.
Okay.
Dragon-like figures had been used in Christianity, especially in medieval cathedrals, likely erected as a defense against demons. The stone statues are rooted in pre-Christian pagan practices. And the dragons will fight against the demons.
Right.
While these looming figures are found on the facades of most medieval cathedrals, many of these dragons serve as protectors perched on top of these buildings. And they are not called gargoyles. Sometimes we call them gargoyles.
Yes.
In church architecture, they are actually called grotesques. They are mythical figures symbolizing protection. And so probably that's why they're placed on the gutters of the cathedrals.
Right.
Protect the gutters as well. And they convey that if you believe what is that is contained in this building, you will be protected from the destructive forces of the world. The Chinese depiction of a dragon alludes to this same kind of goodness that the dragon symbolizes. The dragon holding a pearl is a common image found in Chinese art, and the tale is one of the oldest and best known legends in Chinese folklore. In Chinese mythology, dragons were often kind, helpful, and also protective. The pearl is a magical pearl that causes anything that comes into contact with it to increase and multiply. And this is what the dragon always comes to offer the people. And here in the exhibition, we see the dragon with the pearl is depicted as candlesticks, subtly conveying the message of whom this revered dragon reverences and worship. And that is Christ the light and the pearl of great price. Found in Matthew chapter 13, verse 45 to 46.
How beautiful is that?
Yeah.
And it's executed brilliantly by these
yeah.
Chinese artisans.
Excellent.
Yes, and it's a great expression of interculturality, a meeting and not adapting of cultures without losing their identity and inspiring the hearts of humanity. In fact, Pope Francis himself on February the 17th in 2022 said, "The artist is not even limited to space, for beauty can touch in everyone what is universal, especially the thirst for God, overcoming the frontiers of language and culture." And we see that very well executed, especially in this dragon candlestick.
Absolutely. Now, Father, we've spoken quite a bit about the Chinese culture here in today's program. Obviously, because, we're, as I said, leading up to the Lunar New Year. But I think we also need to mention the Church's position of interculturality is really actually towards all cultures of the world, right?
So, the Church is now acutely aware of interaction and influence of cultures on each other. the Asian experience show that there is no room for cultural isolation in an authentic culture. And so the very nature of culture then demands an intercultural communication of give and take and sharing. In intercultural process, it is a process of enrichment and critique. Interculturation is not a project that is planned and executed by us humans, but a process wherein the community allows itself to be led by the Spirit, because it's the Spirit that animates it.
Right.
I think sort of flowing with that, I have this question because so we see, like two cultures coming alongside one another and, certain commonalities being celebrated through certain symbols or certain depictions in art. But is there I mean, you just mentioned about a process that is led by the Spirit also. Is there some sort of like a formal process as to how something can be accepted as a piece of Christian art? So for example, with the altar that you mentioned earlier, it has elements of Chinese culture. But did it have to have like, macam approval from a priest or bishop to say, yes, this is acceptable, this has not crossed the line in any way?
Firstly, there must be a dialogue. And we have to see if this symbolism is rooted, how deeply rooted this symbolism is in that culture and religion. And if it doesn't have, and the roots aren't so clearly defined, then we could probably make use of them. But then again, you see in the depiction found in this Anima Mundi, there is no effort to try to adopt whatever that the Chinese culture has been used to, but just applying it and then giving it also a Christian dimension with our Christian symbol. So actually it's a meeting of two symbols. It is not just a subsuming of one symbol.
Right. And the fact that these were Chinese artisans themselves who, adopted or adapted. Right? And they must have also been able to understand and appreciate the meaning of the symbols.
So their cultural symbolisms remain.
Yeah.
But then there is also the Christian aspect.
Yeah, they managed to connect it so beautifully.
Yes.
Actually, if you look at it.
Yes.
Without destroying their
No.
symbolism.
Yeah, exactly. And neither is overbearing on the other. In fact, they're supporting each other, and then the beauty of both come out.
It is a dialogue. Just like I said, it is similar to interfaith meetings. We enter into dialogue.
Right.
To see how we can enrich each other with our different faiths. So, but then Christianity is not just only a religion, as the late Pope Benedict XVI said, it is a culture.
Yeah.
And so now we are meeting a culture and see how both cultures can enrich each other without losing its individuality.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Very, very.
Extremely beautiful. Now, Father, more questions for you. A couple more, okay? But now we know that many Chinese families, whether Christian or not, pay their respects to ancestors and family members who have gone before them. So in this instance, many use joss sticks as a sign of the prayers they offer to God for their late family members. Now, for us Catholics, is that okay? What's the Church's position on, us using joss sticks, and what is their meaning?
So joss sticks are actually incense, right? And incense from ancient times have been used as healing remedies, right? Because they are actually usually, the fragrance are drawn from sap of trees, and actually we also know them very familiar. We are very familiar with sap of trees today. We use aromatherapy.
That's right. Yes.
So incense was healing, and in the ancient Jews used them also because for worship of God, because the fragrant smoke that this incense produced symbolized for them the pleasing fragrance of offering to God. And therefore it then became a symbol also of our prayers rising to God. Yes, as a pleasing offering to the Lord.
So much like the candles, and the smoke kind of going up.
Yes.
Symbolizing our prayers
Going
rising up to
God.
heaven.
Okay. So technically, using joss sticks is okay.
Yes, because it's a different way in which the incense are evaporated.
That's right.
Yeah. We use hardened sap placed on top of hot coals for it to evaporate.
That's
We
right.
Put it together into a stick for it to evaporate.
In fact, if you go to, you don't have to go very far actually. If you go to Thailand, you go to Vietnam and Cambodia and all those areas.
In fact, if you go to Vietnam, the grotto of Our Lady at the front of the church usually has an incense urn and many incense. And they don't burn candles; they burn
Yeah, joss sticks.
joss sticks.
That's right. That's right. So it's, yeah. But thank you for confirming that, Father, especially around this time. Now, there are also certain foods that are favorites during the Lunar New Year. Share with us some that have special meanings and symbolism.
Okay. One of it that I can think very quickly actually comes from the tray that they call pao pao xiang, you know, all the different kinds of kana. And
Oh, my favorite.
we can buy quite cheaply actually.
Now,
Lunar New Year, right? Now, one of it that is a must eat during the Lunar New Year found in that pao pao xiang, right? Is the melon seeds, guaci, you know.
of course.
Yeah.
Any type of guaci.
Huh?
Because they have the black one, they have
white
the red
black,
one,
black,
what
red,
all.
white, no problem. And the symbolism of the guaci or melon seeds, where are melon seeds found from? They are found in the melon.
Right.
In abundance in the melon, right? So it symbolizes fertility.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
And then when you break open the shell, right, you crack it.
Correct.
You look at the after extracting the melon seed from inside the shell opens up and it looks like a smiley face, right?
Oh.
And so it symbolizes happiness. Happiness
So,
in fertility. Yeah, happiness and fertility.
See.
The other thing that you find is all the kana, what we call preserved fruits.
That's
So
right.
Fruits itself being preserved then symbolizes longevity and sweetness of life. Lasting sweetness because it's preserved. Yeah.
Oh.
you're giving me an idea for Valentine's Day. It's a little bit ahead, but I'm thinking now instead of flowers for my wife, some preserved fruits because she's very sweet. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so Father, one more interesting one for you. Is there, or can you cite one folklore or superstition that should not be observed by Chinese Christians?
Wearing black. Right.
Yeah.
But then we priests also wear black.
That's true.
And black now, especially for the youth, are cool.
Yeah, and
that's right.
chic
It's
and all
classic.
that.
It's classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs always wore black.
Elegant, right?
But then, I mean, the either our older folk, were not too comfortable with black,
Yes, because
Yeah.
black is always associated also with mourning.
right?
Then I said, maybe just put on a red vest on your black.
Or a red handkerchief or
Red
something like that.
handkerchief, red
Yeah,
flower.
just to have a balance. Huh?
Some red lah. Because it is a meeting of culture, right? It is intercultural. Right? We cannot say it is not inculturation. They say, so now you must accept black. No, it's both black and
Right.
so have some black and red.
Okay.
Right?
So okay, like some of the youth who watch this, okay, mom and dad, it's a dialogue,
It's a dialogue.
It's a dialogue. So let's have a dialogue.
Not totally cannot wear black, totally must wear red. Wear red and black.
This is going to open up some lovely conversations, I feel, over the dinner table. This could be an interesting Chinese New Year for you.
It will definitely be.
All right, and just like that, I think we have come to
Yes.
the end of our conversation. I have learned a lot, because I honestly I always thought it's just inculturation. But
Yeah.
here I've come to appreciate that it's, why can't it be that two cultures or more even
Yeah.
come together and celebrate their beauty in their diversity?
Absolutely.
In
Absolutely.
unity.
In
In unity. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's
yeah.
it. So just a reminder, by the way, if you're listening to us on our live stream, Off the Pulpit goes out every Monday morning at 8:30. You can also catch the encore broadcast of the program on the same day at 8 p.m. and again on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Alternatively, you can listen to the podcasts in your own time
yes.
on our Catholic SG Radio app, on Spotify, or on Apple Podcasts.
And also, you can watch this on our Archdiocese YouTube channel. And today, of course, we want to thank Father Ignatius Yeo. Once again, Father is no stranger. He's parish priest of St. Anthony of Padua. I'm very proud to say that, actually. He's also, of course, a professor of liturgy at St. Francis Xavier's Major Seminary. Thank you so much for joining us, Father.
Thank
we
you.
wish you a blessed Lunar New Year as well.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, and thank you, dear sisters and brothers. We hope all of you are blessed with a beautiful, bountiful, healthy, and happy, prosperous Lunar New Year. Ta-ta!